Welcome to another episode of Behind the Shield podcast. I am your host today, Felisha Daemer, and I've got two guests with me today. One is a co-host, and one is our actual guest. So, Jeff, if you want to introduce yourself, take it from here.
Sure. Thanks, Felisha. Jeff
course.
Bivens, VP of Customer Success here at InfusionPoints.
Awesome.
Nick, over to you.
Nick Bernardo, president of MyGovWatch.com.
Fantastic. Well, we're super glad to have you here today. And the way I want to start this is I want to talk about how you even came into our presence. How did we meet? Let's talk about that. Who introduced us?
Yeah, I think it was our mutual friend Michael Lejeune at RSM Federal, and I was just sort of looking for a referral around some of the federal data certifications, and I think that's how your name came up.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. We worked with Michael Lejeune with RSM Federal for about a couple of years ago, and just to try to help develop a process for us from a government contracting perspective with my team. It was a fairly new team at the time, so I think it really helped them to kind of understand this marketplace a little bit better. So that's awesome.
Well, it's a 7 degrees of Mike Lejeune, right?
That is so true. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody knows him, and it's fantastic. So enough about Michael. Let's talk about you, and let's get into MyGovWatch. So let's talk about this. So from what encouraged you or what inspired you to make a tool like this?
Yeah, so the website has actually existed since 2008. So it was serving only a few industries for about 10 years. And what we were doing in those industries, and we're still doing it today, is providing the life cycle of every single contract in those industries for that type of user. We call that the premium markets of the site. For the last 7 or 8 years, we've operated the website also with a lower cost subscription model for leads only. And what caused us to create that part of the site, Felisha, is that we realized there was a little bit of a Goldilocks and the Three Bears thing going on in the data aggregation space. And for those of you who may not remember that little story, it's like Goldilocks would try the porridge, and the porridge was too cold in the one chair, and then it was too hot in the other chair, and the third chair, it was just right. And what we saw was that there was a massive disparity on one end of the spectrum with data aggregation. For like, $20 or $30 a month, you could have a horrible experience. And then, for thousands and thousands of dollars per year, you could have an experience that's elevated, that certainly provides the right leads and provides a lot of other bells and whistles that large numbers of organizations cannot make use of because they just don't have the resources to use all the bells and whistles of those systems. So we wanted to design a porridge that was just right, meaning it's providing a value to companies that need leads because they have references. They're real businesses that have real references in their space. And you know what? Government may not be their main business, but if they just have a steady stream of bids and RFPs for the right price with the right UX, they'll use it indefinitely. And that's what we found.
That's fantastic. I love that. Yeah, we go ahead, Jeff.
The Goldilocks analogy is perfect. That's fantastic. I was curious, who's your target user?
Yeah, so here's who's not using our site, guys. We're not getting General Electric signing up at $100 a month for MyGovWatch.com. Our typical user is a company that has a real business where government is maybe part of their business, but is not typically the main part of their business. Now, certainly we do have in our user base users where government is most or all of their business, but that's just not the lion's share of who's using our site. It'll be like, okay, we're a landscape design firm and we got one government client last year, and now we want a whole lot more. Or we're an IT company and government is not in our wheelhouse, but we want to try to get into that market. So existing companies with real references and the real ability to compete in the bid cycle that just will never make it their main market.
That's interesting. How do you compare GovWatch to something like Deltech or BGov, or how do you compare those two?
Yeah, so we are providing traditional bid notification. And this is certainly touches on the consulting community, and Mike and I have talked about this a lot. There's something that I call the gold standard in GovCon, and that is, well, you should only bid on a contract if you met the decision makers in advance and you helped them write the RFP. That's like the gold standard. But
Yeah.
what a lot of people don't talk about is that many companies are able to compete every week and every month and every year and every quarter just by bidding on things where they are qualified to bid. I'm not suggesting that a startup is going to go win a state contract for tens of millions of dollars, but there's a lot of companies out there that just need a bid tool. They don't need, advance notice. They don't need upcoming, signals intel. They just don't need that because they may not have the corporate structure that would enable them to use those data tools. But you know what? If they had a steady stream of leads, that would keep Bob or Nancy writing bids in their bid department quite busy, just responding to 2 or 3 bids per month. And there are a lot of
Interesting.
companies, there are an awful lot of companies in that pool.
Yeah, for sure. I could agree with that. And I'm sure you see that every day.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Tell us about one of your customers, if you would. Not their name, but tell us about a customer that has you've got a longstanding relationship with that has benefited.
Yeah. Okay. So that makes me think of a particular company that is in the marketing and advertising space. And we talk about the different platforms that are out there. And this is a company that does a lot of advanced things with marketing. So they're aware of different ways of using AI and different tools of data aggregation. And they looked at some of our competitors and they looked at us and they said, you know what? We don't need all of these other data products because we have a ton of references and you're sending us the right leads every day. And there's too many leads for us to bid on in the first place. So we don't need to spend, $7,000 or $11,000 per year. They just like getting an email every day that says, here are some new marketing leads. Here are the new ones that are on the site today that weren't there yesterday. And then what they're able to then do is just figure out, which of the 20 or 30 things per month do they have time to work on, where they might just submit a couple of bids per month because, again, this is not their main market. It's just a supplemental lead source for their business. And so that would be just one customer that I would talk about because they understand the different ways that they can use data or the different data tools that are out there. But at the end, they said, you know what? We need a utility that can just send us the right leads. And that's why they chose us and continue to use us.
Yeah, it sounds convenient.
Very straightforward.
So, from somebody who is trying to decide what they want to do, from that target audience, what advice can you give to contractors? Like you said, somebody who's trying to who's in the space, but maybe is just looking for the lead gen coming to them. So, what advice could you give on deciding between bidding and no bidding from a lead
So,
that's generated?
yeah. Yeah. So, what most of our customers need to hear, and this is most customers getting into GovCon,
Mm-hmm.
what most of them need to hear, because most of them, GovCon is probably not their only market. They need to
Mm-hmm.
hear that they should start by reverse engineering their business development process. So there's an unlimited way, there are unlimited ways to spend time and money trying to develop relationships in GovCon, federal, state, and local, responding to bids, having AI tools for bid writing, having bid writers. There's a million ways to spend time and money. But at the end of the day, there are budgets and there's only a certain number of people you can have on your team. It's like, okay, we have, 2 salespeople. Which salesperson would be better suited for this? Okay, Fred. What percentage of Fred's time should he spend on this? Well, let's say 25%. Okay, great. We have, Joe who writes bid responses in the private sector. How many bid responses would we like him to write in the public sector? 1 a month. Great. So the process of working back from the ending point, meaning how much time you're able to spend and how much resource and treasure you're willing to devote to it, most companies need to hear that that is something they should do early in the process. Otherwise, they're just spinning their wheels and just following the light and going down whatever road someone recommends that they go down to spend time and money on GovCon, when ultimately the fixed item is the resources that they have available to pursue the endeavor.
For sure, yeah, because it's definitely an investment. It's a BD in the gov space is definitely 24/7. At least for me,
And
that's I tell
certainly
you.
Certainly with federal contracts, the dynamic is a little different than state and local. That gold standard I talked about earlier is certainly more valuable in the federal space. And as the
For
numbers
sure.
get bigger, it becomes more likely that certain companies might be predestined to be on that short list.
Hmm. Is or excuse me, is GovWatch more for the sled space, or is it more for federal, or is it all encompassing?
We're covering everything.
Hmm.
So that's federal, state, and local. So obviously, if you're logging onto our site, you really don't need to go out to SamGov anymore. And what we're also doing with the SamGov data, and I realize not all spending is on SamGov, but that
Hmm.
is a lead source that we pull from. We're doing some interesting things with AI and with different data tools to understand not only who should obviously see the lead X, but who also might like to see that. Because when we study the way that federal government agencies assign a NAICS code to opportunities, and I've written about this, you can look things up that I've written about NAICS codes and federal lead. Um, we find that like 35 or 40% of the time, they're assigning the wrong NAICS code, or in the alternate, they're assigning a NAICS code that's inadequate, right? Where it's only one NAICS code, but it turns out there's 5 or 6 different things. So our system with federal leads knows how to send the right federal leads to people by filling in the blanks, so to speak. And at the state and local level, it's comprehensive in terms of sending people leads, not only from every state government and department in state government, but down to the tiniest school districts or municipal water authorities, for example.
Wow. Do you guys use USA Spending at all? Does you pull from USA Spending?
So that would be the back end of the spending. And so
Huh.
that's an example of where some of our competitors may be offering data tools around USA spending. We just tell people, look, you can spend money on those tools. Those tools may, if that's within your budget, right, go for it. Use other tools for
Right.
that. Or you can just go to USA spending and
Mhm.
remind yourself to pull a report, once a quarter or once a month.
Awesome,
So
yeah.
there's a Jack for every Jill, as I like to say, and there are companies that should be using data tools provided by other
Mhm.
third parties, and others that would just never spend that. So they should just go to USA Spending and get that data on the back end themselves.
For sure, that makes sense.
Tell us a little bit more about how AI benefits the platform.
So we're using AI in different ways. The thing that we're doing differently than a lot of our competitors is we are not leading with AI as the center point of the value that we're providing. And I've been saying this for about a year now. I just thought of it about a year ago, but it's still true. And I think it will remain true. Our users use our site not because we're using AI to aggregate the leads as well as our competitors, because ultimately the user, and I'll just take that marketing company that I mentioned earlier, when we get the right lead in their inbox and it's at the top of their feed on the site, it's new because it just came into our system in the last 24 hours. The user doesn't sit there and say, you know what? I'm really glad that MyGovWatch used AI to get this lead in front of me. They only care that the right lead ended up in
Yes.
their inbox at the top of their feed. Now, we're using AI, but we're also using other things in our system. Like we're even using some old fashioned keywords in our system to
It's
supplement the AI. So
all about
one plus
curation,
one, yeah,
quality.
yeah, yeah. So 1 plus 1 must equal 2. So if something says SEO in our site, the system knows that has to do with marketing, right? And so 100% of the time, people who do SEO, they're going to see that, right? And so we allow for different ways to get the right leads in front of the users in a way that respects that AI may be the only answer some years from now, but may not be the only answer now. And we feel that some of our competitors are maybe doing the users a disservice by implying that all they really need is an AI led tool to get the right leads in front of them, because we believe that's just not true today.
Interesting. Interesting take. When a client is coming and they're onboarding, is that the time where they kind of list out everything that they have from a business perspective and things that they're trying to look for? Is that how AI then utilizes that information to then try and find those leads to push to you?
Yeah, so we're doing some things a little bit differently than our competitors on the front end. And so
Yeah,
there's
tell me
the
about
AI,
it.
yeah, there's the AI stuff, but we're doing a little bit more proactive engagement with the user. So a lot of our competitors are selling a login to their website. Okay, that's great. Here's a login. Good luck, you're on your own. We're selling them a login, but we're selling them access to real people who will help make sure that they have a good experience. Because what we found is that regardless of, whether system A is using AI to, 95% of the functionality getting the right leads to people, or it's only a third of the functionality getting the right leads to people, in the wrong hands or with the wrong user, the user won't find what they're looking for, regardless of how much AI or lack of AI a platform may be using. So we're doing a lot of proactive encouragement of engagement early in the process to make sure that the users don't defeat their own goals.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we found historically is that if that the users are not offered help, they work against themselves in ways they do not intend.
Makes sense. Awesome.
Curious if we could talk a little bit about the life cycle in general of government contracting. So we've talked quite a bit about sort of that discovery process or connecting, right, a potential bidder to an RFP. Can you share a little bit with our audience about what happens before that? As that RFP is being developed and as those requirements are being gathered.
So, and you mean just, organically in the marketplace, not necessarily as it relates to our website?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So obviously government spending can go anywhere from massive, federal contracts where everybody knows that it's happening down to small purchases at a school district, for example. So it really runs the gamut, right? It runs the gamut, from 15 stakeholders in a federal opportunity involving multiple parts of a federal department at the federal level, all the way down to one person at a school district just saying, you know what, I need to buy supplies and I need to call two suppliers and get two quotes. So it really runs the gamut where it could be anything in between those two bookends, Jeff. So it's,
It's a lot of
it really,
variation.
yeah, there's just massive variations depending on how big the spend. And typically it has to do with how much money is being spent.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. What's the budget available?
Correct.
Yep. Yeah. Kind of the higher up you go, the more budget, like at the federal level versus,
Gets
like
more
to your point, a
complicated,
regional.
more people involved, pre-solicitation,
Hmm.
sources sought, right? And but yeah, and certainly at the federal level, they also have the micro purchase threshold, and there's a lot of that at the state and local level as well, where there's just not a whole lot of red tape involved. It's like, here's who we can buy off of if it's on the GSA schedule, or here's a sole source if it's a software package that, and there's only one provider who can offer those features or capabilities. So it just really, there's a million different ways that cat can be skinned.
For sure. For sure. And it sounds like, regardless of where in across that spectrum of size and in the hierarchy, MyGovWatch.com will aggregate that information and uh, and your customers can sort of narrow down into the business niche that they target the most. Is that right?
Yeah, and the way that I say it, and this is the way that we start our webinar every month. And by the way,
Mm-hmm.
we do a monthly webinar, MyGovWatch Live, the BDG Roundtable. The next one is on March 18th. And that's a free
Good.
webinar. You can sign up for it at mygovwatch.com halfway down the page. But at the start of that webinar, I always say the same thing as a part of the intro that I read. It's like big government contracts do not start with a solicitation, but all roads lead to one, right?
Got it.
And so because the larger the purchase, if it's over the micro purchase threshold federally, if it's above the state threshold in each of the 50 states and DC and the different outlying territories, once it's over that threshold, they're going to do an RFP. So it's just a question of like, if you can get involved prior to the RFP by meeting decision makers, that's great. If you're not able to do it, if you have fantastic references, we've seen time and time again that companies that had no awareness, but that had the right proposal at the right price with the right offer are able to win.
Great.
That's always my struggle with the pricing, I tell you. Pricing always gets me in trouble. Always, no matter what I do.
So that's really good advice. The getting on that road that leads to the solicitation, and to your point, building that relationship, right? What are some ways that new entrants into the market might be able to get on that road and build those relationships?
Yeah, and this actually brings up another event that is coming up. So on March 26th, I'll be in Reston, Virginia, and I'm going to answer that question, Jeff, in a roundabout way.
Please.
And this event in March 26th at the Carasoft Conference and Collaboration Center, Thursday the 26th. It's an event being put on by Jay Schaus and Associates at that conference center in Reston, Virginia. And so the topic of that event is the Subcontracting Symposium. So a good way for a lot of small companies or companies that are not sure if government is for them to get in is through subcontracting. So there's just, as a lot of people who might be watching this podcast are aware, there are subcontracting requirements baked into many, if not most, significant federal purchases. So that is sort of a given that's a market for small companies that are interested in getting into the federal market. But it turns out there's also subcontracting opportunities at the state and local level. So one thing that we do with users who are not sure, like, should we be prime or sub or both, is show them ways during the engagement process, if they're willing to engage with us, show them ways to figure out, like, who are the prime contractors, right? How do I find out if there's a bid conference? How do I get the names of the attendees of a bid conference? And that is sort of the soft underbelly of getting involved in government contracting, because if you think there's a massive market of companies that can bid on contracts just by submitting a proposal, that's true. But there's an even bigger market of companies that do not want to do all of the things that they need to do, but would love to be a subcontractor as a part of a larger thing. And I wonder what you all
Fantastic.
think of that.
Fantastic. Oh, yeah, no, you bring up such a great point, right? Which is there's a fair bit of overhead in terms of regulations and compliance that are required to be a prime contractor, and not just cybersecurity compliance that we do at InfusionPoints specialize in, but supply chain management compliance, and so, yeah, to be able to participate in a bid, to be able to contribute value, um, and share in an award as a sub to a prime is a wonderful way to diversify the supplier base, as well as give a new entrant to the market access. I'm really glad you shared that with our audience.
Yeah, and another thing about that too, Jeff and Felicia, is that what users on our site are able to do is have us conduct called, and some of your listeners may know what this is, and you know what this is, certainly, a Freedom of Information Act request federally, or at the state
Yep.
and local level, it's called open records, or it may vary by name in different states. So there's a way on MyGovWatch to have us go fulfill that for you, so that the buyer doesn't know that you're the one that's asking for the information. Often they don't like that you're asking for it, even though they have to fulfill the request.
Yeah.
And so a way to get into subcontracting is like, okay, here's bid X. And you're not bidding on it because maybe you don't have all the qualifications, but you could be a sub. We can fulfill the FOIA request for users. Then they can see who were all of the bidders on that deal and just go contact them. And we even get a copy of the winning proposal, pardon me, so you can see who the winner was. And, often in the proposal, there could be an org chart with lots of names and phone numbers. So that closing of the loop after contracts are awarded, whether someone uses a site like ours to do the open records request or do it themselves, that's a very powerful way of figuring out, who should I be selling to if you'd like to be a sub.
I agree with that completely. Oh my gosh.
What a great
That's
insight.
absolutely. Yeah, and subcontracting, I mean, even for us, I mean, that's how we've got in, with the government from the beginning, was through subcontracting years ago. So it's a key to get in, and a key to keep you alive, and to keep that overhead burden away from you.
For sure. For sure. And we're constantly coaching our users that it's a viable path forward.
Absolutely.
So that's some great advice. What's maybe sort of the antithesis of that? In other words, what are some things that you see companies kind of doing that they maybe shouldn't be doing or could be doing better?
Many of the people who try our site, because there's no restrictions to people trying our site. You just put in a credit card. It's not even charged right away. Anybody can create an account and try it. So many people who try our site come to that experience with one or more myths, let's call them. Well, the government always knows who they want before the RFP comes out. That's not true. Well, they only go with the low bidder. That's certainly not true. So it's dispelling the myths or helping our users understand where they are believing a myth that is not something that is rooted in reality 100% of the time. That's where we see a lot of people falling short.
Love that. Some really basic assumptions.
Yeah, and we see that over and over again, and a lot of times, and this is also a differentiator with us, is the educational component we provide to users through the webinar series or just the ability to interact with me or staff, is that users often are afraid to jump into the pool. And often just several conversations or the ability to ask a question will give someone confidence enough to submit that first offer, or confidence enough to go contact all of the attendees of a pre-bid conference. And sometimes that's all they need to go down that path.
Fantastic.
So, Nick, have you yourself ever been a bid writer? And if so, what crazy things have you come up against?
Oh, the bid process. Yeah, I actually started my career in the marketing department of a company in the mid to late 90s. And quick story, the craziest thing that ever happened to me in the bid process is in my mid 20s, I'm struggling, frantically trying to get a box to the FedEx location to ship out to California. I throw my Tupperware into the top of the box from my lunch that I eaten that day, which was spaghetti, right? And I take the box to the office, to the FedEx location, and then I get home after dropping off the box, and I can't find the Tupperware. And I spend the night thinking I'm going to lose my job because I sent my half-eaten lunch to the state of California with spaghetti in the box. And then as I stopped short at a red light the next morning, the Tupperware flew out from under the seat. So I had a
Oh my gosh.
I had a sleepless night over that.
I would have had a sleepless night too. That is absolutely hilarious. I don't have as exciting of a story as that, but I just remember the days. I love the days now where we can submit almost everything virtually. At least everything on the federal side that we submit is all virtual, so I can email it or put it in a GSA. But I remember the days of getting up at 2 a.m, driving to Virginia Beach or driving to DC because we're in Western North Carolina, driving to one of those two places, trying to get onto base or different bases, trying to get onto bases, trying to get to turn this proposal in, and just the nightmare and the chaos of having to do that. Countless amount of times I've thought about that, and how in today's world we don't have to do that anymore, and I really
and
appreciate that.
having to create your own receipt to get someone to sign it.
Yes, yeah, and then or the 900 copies that you have to print off and put into binders, and oh my gosh, you're saving so much paper, you're saving so much time. We used to save an entire day just for putting together your proposal. Nothing to do with the
For
writing.
sure.
Writing's done. But yeah, we used to save an entire day for that. So the good old days. So, thank you, Nick, so much for joining us. What I want to do is ask some fun off the wall questions. No pressure, just whatever comes to mind, whatever you're feeling today, because I know my answers typically to these questions change all the time.
I love it.
But I'm going to ask you, and Jeff, I'm going to ask you as well. So, to start off, one of my favorite ones is I am a book nerd. So, this may be just a normal kind of a question, but I'm a total book nerd, and I love getting book recommendations. So, with that being said, what is your most influential book that you have had or that you have read in the last 6 months or a year, if you're not much of a reader? But what is an influential book? Not just your favorite, but an influential.
The Millionaire Next Door.
Oh, The Millionaire Next Door. I don't think I know that. Who do you know?
Yeah,
Who that one's by?
it's a business book about, like, just what are the habits of someone who's entrepreneurial, and how do you, not that wealth is like the most important thing, but it is a thing,
Of
right?
course.
And what are the habits of someone who tends to accumulate wealth?
I love that. Jeff, what about you? What's a influential book you've read lately?
Looking at it right now. I just started here at InfusionPoints 4 months ago, and the book, The First 90 Days, has been really helpful for me as I've been making the
Love that.
transition from my last role into this new job.
That is awesome. Mine right now is The Grit Factor by Shannon Huffman Paulson, or Shannon Paulson Huffman. That book has stuck with me, and so has Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. Both of those have stuck with me heavily for the last 6 months. So I am definitely on the train of both of those books. So leadership books, I'm all about business books. I'm all about leadership books. I love them. I'm constantly working on my leadership myself all the time. Okay, so love the book recommendations. We'll list them below. Another question I like to ask, or that I thought was rather interesting. And Jeff, I think I told you I wasn't going to ask this question, and I'm going to ask this question. What is your favorite chain pizza restaurant?
You go
So
first,
deep.
Jeff.
It's so profound.
Oh my goodness. Chain pizza restaurant. Well,
hmm
I'm gonna have to pass on this one. I live in rural Colorado, and we just got our first start. Speaking of chains, there are very few in the little 6,000 person town where I live, but none of
Wow.
them. There's a Domino's, but no, I like the local pizza restaurant. We've got one called Garlic Mike's that is about impossible to beat. So
Well,
I'm here for that too, by the way.
my answer will be this. I hate chain food in general, but if I have to choose chain food, I'll do Sparrow in New York City, because at least then I'm in New York City.
Yeah, Caitlin's cheering in the background. That's right. That's right. And you know what? I also have a similar answer. It's a local chain. I love local chains. I don't like big mass chains. I'm on the same path there. But yeah, local chain called Mario's, which I've talked about this before, but I love. I don't know. I love that they have been able to expand. I think that's fantastic for them. But there, yeah, local chain Mario's. Okay, my last question. It's the last one. Is going to be, what is your favorite TV show right now? It's very profound. It's very deep.
What's the one with the soccer coach, the American soccer coach in
Ted
England?
Lasso.
Ted Lasso.
Okay, so
Yep.
that goes to show you how much TV I watch. Like, that's what the rest of my family is watching. So ergo, that must be my favorite one,
It
because
must be.
I don't proactively seek out a lot of television shows. It's just like, this is what they're watching, so this is what I'm watching.
That works. That works. I've always got something playing in the background. So,
Love
anyways,
Ted
Jeff.
Lasso. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
Ted
What about with
Lasso.
you?
We're watching High Potential, and I'm loving that as well.
Sure. Not familiar. I'll have to look that up. Caitlin's nodding her head, so I'll
Gotta
have to look
find
that
it.
one up.
Gotta
Yeah,
find
I
it.
definitely will.
Yep.
I definitely will. I'm a little late to the game on Fallout. Fallout is definitely one that I'm watching. I got really excited a couple months ago because I thought the entire thing was released, and I wanted to be able to binge it over the weekend, and wasn't able to. Got one episode in and realized that there were no more episodes, so haven't watched it since then. But that's the show that I want to finish. I want to get on that. So. Anyways, all right, guys. Well, this has been fantastic. I appreciate both of you. Nick, thank you so much for joining us. Any last remarks before we drop?
No, thank you for the opportunity for participating, and you folks have a fantastic day.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for the work you do.
My pleasure. Thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.